One thing I noticed with Bradford is in muddy water, I feel like your casts are very important. They're important in clear water, but they're very important. And I noticed from a lot of other anglers, a lot of what I would consider wasted cast. And I'll kind of try to draw a picture to that. This bank, you see, there's only just one. You see, there's a few laydowns to your far left there, and then you got this whole naked bank to your far right. You see that? All right. What I consider a wasted cast in muddy water is anytime you're fishing docks, you're fishing laydowns, um, even a seawall. Sinclair was full of seawalls. Those are bass magnets. And I consider wasted cast anytime you cast in that area far to the right. You see over the right of that laydown where there's just naked bank, not a lot of structure there. And then you cast, not only do you not cast to the bank, throw your lure all the way up to the bank, you're cast out in the middle where you're 15, 20 foot away from anything. That'd be the bank, that could be just out in the middle of nowhere. Anytime you're fishing muddy water, place like Sinclair, you got docks, you have seawalls, there's a few laydowns, there's grass mats, you got all these visual targets. And you can go a layer deeper to this. Even on those docks have a lot of intricacies to them. There's ladders, there's places where there's two poles instead of one, there's boat lifts, there's a side that's going to have shade, you got catwalks, you've got the deck of the dock. There's all these specific components of the docks, and you can find patterns within just the dock. You'll find out that sometimes these fish will relate to just the ladders because the ladders oftentimes are in very shallow water. The people use the ladders to get on and off, like from the water to the bank or from the dock to the water. And those ladders will either be in very deep water or they'll be in very shallow water. The catwalks are always leading from the bank, the shallowest water, to the deck, which has the most shade and most cover. And you can find these little intricate patterns within the dock. And the problem that I saw, or I shouldn't say problem, something that I saw that I think a lot of guys could improve on to help catch fish. Obviously, Bradford, I say you do it very, very well. But I think if you did it consciously, you probably would do even better. Is when you pull up to a dock, when you pull up to a laydown, don't just kind of like haphazardly cast at that area and then keep moving and just assume there's not a fish there. Specifically this time of the year, if you're in a pocket in a cove and you've had a bite or two in that area, something about that area is holding fish. It's got the right bottom. It's got the right amount of grass. It's something about it. It's on the right side of the lake for the time of the year. It's something about that area that the fish like. And you want to be very thorough with your cast. So you pull up to a dock, your first cast, obviously I would hit the corners, the outside corner first. Those are easy casts. You don't have to worry about messing up. Those are the easiest casts to make to a dock. Then I'll start looking at that dock and I'll look at where there's a ladder. Look where maybe there's a boat lift. Look at the post. There'll be single posts all the way around the post, and all of a sudden there's a double post. Pay attention to that. The ladders that come from the bank, you'll see a lot of times the ladder that comes from the bank to the seawalls. You make very precise casts of that. I noticed a lot of anglers just kind of just going by the docks, like just going. I'm just going down the bank. Be specific about your cast. I think that'll increase your catches a lot.
Kevin, being from the
Sure.
north, it sounds like this lake was significantly different for you. How did you gain confidence in Sinclair before and during the tournament?
Great question.
Oh man, that is a great question. Really just getting down there, practicing, getting familiar with the water. After you catch your first fish in the muddy water, I started to gain that confidence. Like, okay, they can see it. It is
Right.
possible to catch a fish in muddy water. Um, it was a really big difference from what I'm used to doing. But If I had to give you any advice, I'd say just get out there, try, throw some baits, and get that first bite, and then you'll start to understand. Things will start to make sense for you.
Yeah, that's a great thing. What you said was a mouthful there. Because you look at that water and you say, "There's no way a fish is ever going to find my bait. There's no way they can see this. There's no way they can do it."
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
I can relate to that to a T. I remember there's a lake that I have here at home called Lake Greenwood. It's exactly like Sinclair, and it gets muddy just like Sinclair. And you go down there and you're like, man, there's just no way there's not they're not gonna find my bait, man. There's no way. Um, but we underestimate that these predators survive and live in that environment. They're I don't like to use the word smart, but they have evolved to what the conditions are around them. They can do some pretty incredible things.
Well, and
Yeah.
now
yeah.
you can watch all the muddy water stuff on sufschool.com and
Yeah.
gain all sorts of
But
confidence. So,
yeah, there's a couple modules in that workshop. I think it was the one about cold fronts or something that I did maybe about a month ago. Um, that talks about fishing muddy water this time of year. It's the most simple way you could ever fish. Bradford, how about you? Even though you won, there's always something we could have we saw that we wish we could have capitalized on a little bit better. Was there anything in particular that you saw, even thinking back on the day, you're like, oh man, I wish I would have done a little bit more of that, or is there anything in particular you would have liked to done different?
Yeah, yeah. So after that first spot, I caught my two big ones. I ran towards the river, and I think I just ended up catching a lot of short fish up there that wouldn't help me. So I think I should have stayed closer towards the lower end and not waste all the gas and run up there because I was
Yeah,
getting a lot more quality bites down by the lower end of the lake.
you you know that's the good thing. That's one thing I love about 2 day events is you don't know. You got to try. You you got to try to move and do things. So I commend you to having the comfort and the confidence to try to expand on your areas and see if there's something else better out there, and then go back to it. That's pretty high level thinking right there, in my opinion. And so a lot of times, what happens is you look at what happened on day one, had a good day. You analyze what was productive and what was not, and then on day two, if we would have had a day two of the tournament, you would have known to sot your butt down in that creek down on the lower end and do not move. Throw the keys away. Uh, I think that's another thing I learned about tournament fishing. I'm still learning about tournament fishing. Tournament fishing, you got to think about it almost like work. This won't be a popular thought here, but it's almost like work. It can be extremely monotonous and downright boring at times because I've fished like a spot. Like when I say a spot, I'm talking about 100-yard bank, 50-yard bank all day long, 2 and 3 days. And buddy, it can make you. That's why y'all see me wearing glasses sometime now. That's why I wear glasses, and my hair, my beard got gray in it now because, dude, it will drive you crazy going up and down one bank all day long. But sometimes that's what works, and with one or two baits, and it took me an extreme amount of discipline to be able to do that, to go down up and down one bank or one creek, one spot, one bait, all freaking 3 days long. Like, dude, by the end of it, you're like, dude, I don't want to see another shaky head for the rest of my life. You know, until you get to that point, you're almost not really tournament fishing. That's really what it is. And it's funny because now we got forward facing sonar and we have live television. Our fans and people that watch tournament are realizing how monotonous that tournament fishing really is. Like, dude, it's been like that since it's always been boring. Like it's always been like that. You get one thing in your hand and you just got to stick with it because that's the best way to have a good day of tournament fishing. So that's really high level thinking there, man. Good job on that. I'm proud on you for being aware that that's what's going on. And if I could go back, I would do it any differently. Do some things a little bit differently. Kevin, was there anything? What was there anything you had questions about or really felt not confident about after you left, or you wish you had another couple days to try to figure out? What was your biggest hurdle, you feel like?
I would have loved to have a couple more days, just to experiment, go, and practice in muddy water. Some things I wish I would have done different is throwing the chatterbait and spinnerbait more. I know a lot of the top 10 guys caught him on that,
Yeah,
and in practice, I didn't have any luck with those baits. And then at 7:03 in the morning, I caught my first fish and ended up being a PB largemouth. So I just
really.
I, I caught on the gremlin, and then I just stuck with that rest of the. I had two rods for the whole day. I just stuck with those
Yeah,
two when I had 14 tied up, just because I'm like, all right, this is what they're just gonna stay with this.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Still a
really,
good.
as far, go ahead.
I was just gonna still good baits to use. A flipping bait, gremlin, and the swim jig. Were those your two
Yeah.
you're talking about? Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Those are good two to put in your hand, man. Really.
Yeah. And as far as the challenges, really just to get to learn the water and where, maybe some more spots, and I guess try to learn what's underneath the water. I guess that was another hurdle for me, because I'm used to be able to see, 10,
Right.
13 feet down, and like, oh, I can see, like, here's the weed line, here's, here's a hole in the weeds, I'm going to fish that, do this, but without being able to see any of that, that was quite a challenge.
Yeah, I can understand that. And so, not to get super deep and weird on you, this is where you start using your imagination a little bit. Especially, you can do that this time of year in the spring. So when I'm fishing that muddy water like that, I'm literally exactly what you said. Because you fish clear water, you know how fish behave or in and around grass. You don't necessarily see that, but you're imagining as you're fishing that grass, you're imagining like where there may be holes. So long story short, you got to slow down a little bit more. And that's what I was talking about. I know I keep saying this, but I can't stress it enough. Precise casts mean a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Slow down. Instead of in clear water, you can almost pick out where you need to cast. You see that hole, all right, hit that hole, and then you may look 50 yards down the bank before you cast again.
Mm-hmm.
In this muddy water, you might, and we'll show that clip that you already saw from the straight up fishing school. When I pull up to a laydown in that muddy water, I made probably 5 flips before I caught that fish in the same laydown, because fish are not seeing that much, and you're getting that fish's attention with vibration and him feeling your lure. He's not seeing it like you do in clear water. They either feel the vibration or they hear the sound, which is still vibration. So it's very important to make a cast at a dock and literally hit the next pile right behind it. Then literally hit the next pile right behind it. Where in Clearwater, I can cast at the front corner and probably draw that summer gun back out from the catwalk to come out and get my Cinco or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
You don't get that luxury in the dirty water. That's what I'm talking about with no wasted cast. Very precision matters. Cast to the front piling, cast to the back piling, to the middle piling, to the catwalk. When you're fishing your grass, if you pull up to a grass clump the size of half deck of your boat or something, dude, that grass clump is worth at least 4 to 5 casts. The
Mm-hmm.
two corners, the back side, the front side, and then the back corner on left and right sides, because you got to get that bait pretty close to him to get him to react. Because we are fishing for largemouth bass, they're predators, so they're going to hide next to something. If you remember in our seminar, I talked about those fish love to get by vertical things, and that's what that grass was. That was the vertical structure, especially when they're getting ready to spawn. Dock columns, the water willow. That's the vertical structure they like to get beside, and they're pretty much immobile when they're there. They're just sitting there unless there's some weird situation. And so you've got to get that bait right in front of them. So you're almost imagining what is in the water, even though you can't see it, and you're pitching that swim jig 2 foot to the left of that grass bed, 2 foot to the right, to the back of it, to the front of it, to the back corner, to the back right corner, to the front right corner. Like you're going to be more precise, more precision. That's how you get more bites instead of haphazardly just going down the bank and just making random casts. which is that's the worst thing you can do in those conditions is just haphazardly just going down the bank. Your cast mean a lot. Your boat position means a lot, for sure. Um, I think one of the keys when it's like that, I noticed this watching a couple of other guys that I got to watch. I like the muddy conditions because it's simple. As muddy as Sinclair was this past weekend, there ain't about four things that you got to worry about. You don't have to worry about. First of all, you ain't got to worry about they're out in 10, 12 foot, 13, 14, 15 foot. Maybe they are. You ain't even got to worry about that. As far as we know, I think our mindset is going to change on that in the next couple of years before facing stone over. But as of now, we don't know what we don't know, and I think you can pretty much focus on the bank. But you got chatterbait, spinnerbait, something to flip with. You probably could have caught some on a frog, believe it or not. Well, it's 60 degrees, and the fish being up high, like their nose is literally at the right at the water surface a lot of times, especially around those grass mats. You'd be surprised what you could probably catch on a frog. We felt cold because it was like 32 degrees that morning, wasn't it? We feel cold, but those fish, they don't know it's cold. It takes a couple days for it to rebound in the water. But one thing I noticed is, and I didn't see it with you, Kevin, because I caught you we found you at the last part of the day. Since you only have those 3 or 4 things that you have to fish, you can put those 3 or 4 things in your hand and like just stick with them. I saw a couple guys, they grab a wacky rig, then they grab this, grab like a Texas rig, Cinco or something. When it's like that, man, it's a good time to put the chatterbait, the spinnerbait in your hand and get very precise with your cast and don't lose confidence in it. If you go 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours without a bite, you can feel confident and you can keep that thing in your hand. And eventually you're going to come across the right cast. I see a lot of losing confidence in 30 minutes without a bite, 40% without a bite. And you start moving faster. You start not really focusing on the details of the cast. And you really end up burning time. Putting something that really works in your hand and making sure you're very precise with your cast is going to go a long way for you.
All right. So Zach asked, so I had the majority of my bites on the shallow dock stairs, all but 2.
Yes.
Should
Yes.
I have focused on each dock post more thoroughly or look for more sets of stairs?
Yes, I got to watch Zach fish. Zach, bro, you were all on it, cuz when I was watching him fish, I was like, dude, he's gonna catch a freaking giant. Zach, what you were on is one of the things that I love doing. You keyed in on something I've already kind of talked about a little bit. You keyed in on the juice, cuz. Zach was catching his fish on the ladders. He mentioned catching them on the ladders. 100% would focus on that. That is a thing. When you're fishing fixed position docks, ladders or steps, that's a thing. So think about it, Zach. When you come off of that bank, the very first thing that hits the water, the most inconsistent thing that those fish out of that entire pocket are those freaking steps. You got catwalks everywhere, but not every dock has those steps that come off the seawall into the water. You know what those fish are doing on those steps? They're spawning. When you told me that, I was like, oh my God, this is so juicy. They're spawners. It's a structure. Remember when they spawn, Kevin probably has seen it. I don't know if you don't know if you get to fish much when they're spawning in the Northeast. I know we have like the season there. But if you ever sight fish, the shallowest type of vertical structure in the water is where those fish spawn beside. On Sinclair, it would be the steps. So when I get bites on things like what you're talking about, Zach, in my mind, ding, fish are spawning. And so, of course, I'm going to focus on the steps, but anything that I can find that's in that much water, like knee-deep water, I'm focusing on that. Because that's just telling me they're spawning. So, for clarity here, there were fish in probably, I would say all 3 stages, but for sure pre-spawn and spawn. So those fish that you were catching, Zach, they were spawning on them steps. I would make multiple casts to each step. I would fish every step very thorough. I'd fish the left side of the step, the right side of the step, the front of the step. I would go back to the left side, back to the right side. I would flip just like you were doing. Only thing, Zach, that I would change, when fish are spawning, go to a much more compact bait. The Gremlin was a great place. I'm not even trying to say, you could use a brush hog. I'm not even trying to say, my bait, just a compact creature bait. So I probably would have used I think a bait change would have helped you tremendously, Zach. Something smaller, more compact. That was going to do 2 things for you. Remember, when fish are spawning, they really just want to get that bait out of the bed. If you watch, that's what I love about sight fishing. It's taught me so much about fish behavior. Those fish are doing the same thing. He's going to want to nudge that thing out of the bed. They may grab the tail. They do all kind of weird stuff. So you shorten the bait. He's got less to nudge, so you can get a better chance of hooking it. Secondly, a shorter, more compact bait is going to you can put it in those places that you were fishing much easier. So you make more precise, more efficient casts. Your casts aren't wasted. One last thing, when you get bit on those steps a lot, be very, very careful. Very, very careful not to move the bait too much. Flip it up there at those steps. First thing you should do is go grab your pack of Marlboro Lights, some cigarettes, chewing tobacco, a sandwich. Don't do nothing for quite a bit of time. Flip that bait into that step. Let it sit there just for longer than you're comfortable doing it. You don't have to count. I don't want to get into seconds and stuff like that. Don't make it math. Just longer than you're really longer than it's comfortable on slack line. You've fished bed fish before. When you flip in a bed, first thing the fish does is leave. Within 3 seconds, he's back and he's looking at the bait. Give it some time to find your bait and be very intentional about leaving it in that space for as long as possible. Great. Zach, I appreciate you tuning in to the live tonight. I definitely wanted to mention what you were. Great question. I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, I would definitely continue to do what you were doing. Great thing you found.
Everybody wants to get better at fishing. One of the things that you always hear about getting better at fishing is spending more time on the water. What if I told you you really don't have to spend more time on the water to get better? Because I know what you're dealing with. You go to work Monday through Friday, you work 8 to 5. From 5 to dark, you take your kids to practice, soccer, baseball, whatever the case may be, football, whatever it is for you. Then you figure out what you're going to eat for dinner. You get everybody bathing in bed and you start that process over again for the next day. You don't have any more time. Your capacity is stretched when it comes to being on the water. But what if I told you you really don't have to spend more time on the water to win your club tournament? To take your friends fishing and just have a good time, just to go out there and feel confident when you launch your boat or you take your hike to the river. It doesn't take more time, it takes more deliberate time and more deliberate practice. When you pull up to the water, you want to know exactly what to look for. You want to know exactly what gear to use. When you figure out those 2 things, you're on your way to having more fun and catching more fish. Listen, I have an online course that will teach you everything you need to know. Where to go, what to look for. You'll be more confident when you're out there on the water. If you're interested in my school, look at the description box in this video. I'll leave a link to it. I have a 3-part seminar. Can't talk today. I'm so excited I can't talk. I have a 3-part series that'll teach you everything you need to know to catch more fish without spending more time on the water. It's all about being more intentional so you can catch more fish.